Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to News Dose, and it's that time of the year when gaming news starts to pick up again because we do have the Game Awards here in just a few weeks, and that not only means that we'll have a ton of announcements to talk about, but also, of course, the debate about which game is the best of 2025. Well, today they announced the nominees, and I do have some thoughts about this because the reaction online is always very interesting. Now, we're also going to talk about Xbox because they once again talked about their next generation plans, and they're not even trying to keep it a secret anymore. With Valve's announcement last week, it kind of felt like Xbox gave their response as to why gamers might want to reconsider and choose them instead for next generation. First, though, I do want to thank my supporters on Patreon and on YouTube memberships. Thank you just so much for what you do, and you will receive this video through early access. Let's go and get right into things, though, starting off with Spongebob Titans of Tide. This game has had a very quiet release. It will come out tomorrow, but I really haven't noticed much advertising or really any online discussion at all, which I find to be a bit odd for a franchise that, while might not necessarily be huge in the gaming space, but it is still a notable franchise that's already spawned a couple successful 3D platformers these past 5 years, which is, well, why it got a third entry. Well, if anything else, reviews have been rolling out today, and the PC version currently has a 78 overall score on Metacritic, and the PlayStation 5 version has a 71. So, go ahead and split the difference, and there you go, which is about where the previous two games landed as well. And that's my thing about this series. Regardless of what the scores show, time and time again, fans have loved these 3D platforming SpongeBob games. As an example, Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated received a 68 from critics, and then fans gave it an 88. So I think this is just kind of par of the course for these games. I mean, my take for these games is that if you like SpongeBob humor and if you like 3D platformers, then these are pretty good, solid titles. Now, personally, I think that there's some of the better 3D platformer games that you can play in today's era, and this game sounds similar to the previous two entries. So I'd say if you like those games, and based on what I've heard, there's a pretty good chance that you'll like Titans of Tide as well. Oh, and of course, Call of Duty Black Ops 7 just released, but its launch has been a bit strange this year to me, and I could be wrong about this, but it feels like there's been a little less hype than usual. I haven't noticed near as much excitement going into its release, but I wanted to see how its launch numbers would look before making any kind of assumption, and that's the beauty of something like Steam. It's the one platform that we can truly take a peek behind the curtain, and I have to say, things are not looking all that great for Black Ops 7, or at least so far. Now, admittedly, there is an asterisk to this because Call of Duty is more of a console-centric franchise. I've talked about that before, but even still, I find its launch numbers on Steam to be wildly underwhelming. Now, the reason I say that is because since its launch, its peak high has been 100,000 players on Steam, which, if you compare that to last year when Black Ops 6 released, its peak high was 315,000 players. So this is a drop of 215,000 players year over year. And, that's not a good sign no matter how you slice it. Now, again, maybe things will look a little bit different on console, and I'm going to wait for those numbers before I say anything definitively. But if it also gets confirmed that it dropped on consoles as well, then yeah, this is all the more reason that I've been preaching that their overconfidence could come back to bite them. Earlier this year, allegedly, Activision said that they weren't worried about Battlefield 6 because to them, Call of Duty is just too big to fail. So when I heard that, I immediately thought to myself that that's a bad sign because that is a ridiculous mindset to have, and it tells me that their priorities are not on its quality. Yes, Call of Duty is a big franchise, but Activision and their employees need to understand that they also can't keep upsetting their fan base, especially if Battlefield lives up to being its biggest competitor like they did this year. Again, though, we'll see how this data differs from the console numbers when Circana eventually talks about it. Now, I also understand that it's in Xbox Game Pass. I'm sure people will bring that up, but again, it was also in Game Pass last year. So the comparison of last year's Call of Duty to Black Ops 7, I think is pretty fair, all things considered. Now, speaking of big franchises, though, if you ever wonder just how big and how much excitement there is for GTA 6, well, we got a very interesting update because apparently the first trailer for Grand Theft Auto 6 is now the most viewed YouTube trailer of all time without ads. Currently has 269 million views, which is absolutely crazy. But I think this also goes to show why game companies are afraid to launch their game anywhere near its release. It really could launch with record-breaking numbers like we've never seen before. And I get it. Not everybody is necessarily excited about this game. Not everybody loves the GTA games. But at the end of the day, Grand Theft Auto 5 sold more than 200 million copies. I mean, that is truly unheard of. And this is the exact reason why its delay was such massive news. It completely shifts the plan for 2026 and how companies approach their release schedule. Now, at the same time, Sony probably can't wait for its release because the PlayStation 5, I mean, I'm telling you, that thing is going to fly off shelves next year. But yeah, GTA 6 is going to put some crazy numbers up. Now, whether it lives up to the hype in terms of its quality, well, that's a wait-and-see type of thing, but there you go. All right, now let's go talk about Xbox because they're once again talking about their next generation console. I mean, we've been hearing rumors about this thing pretty much all year long, and I think by this point, they're not even trying to hide it anymore. They know that we know that it's a console PC hybrid. But last week was, I'd say, very interesting for them just because Valve kind of beat them to the punch. You know, Valve announced their new Steam machine, and it didn't take all that long for people to kick up the narrative. You know, well, if Valve is doing a PC console hybrid, then why do we need this Xbox console PC hybrid? Now, personally, I think that's a very naive way of looking at this situation because I think that they are targeting different demographics, but we're going to get into all of that here in just a moment. First, though, let's kind of take a look at a new response by Xbox, which I kind of almost see as a response to the new Steam machine. This comes from Sarah Bond, and in an interview, she said, hardware is absolutely core to everything that we do at Xbox because we know that our most valuable players, the people who love Xbox, love the hardware experience. That's why we're working on our next generation hardware. It's going to be a powerful experience and one that also enables people to take their library with them, and that's what's really important here as well, is that we know while people want to play their library absolutely on the console, they also want to play it on PC or stream it on the cloud. And based on that wordage, once again, it seems like everything is lining up with the rumors that it is indeed a console PC hybrid. And I don't really think that that's surprising anymore, but the key phrase that she used is that it's going to be a powerful experience. Now, they've reiterated that on 3 separate occasions. They keep talking about how this is going to be a massive jump in terms of power, and that it's ultimately going to be a premium experience, aka it's probably going to be very expensive. Now, based on the different rumors and the different things that we've heard about it, it very well could be $1,000 or maybe even more than that. But I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing in this case, and I understand that might sound strange at first, but I think given their position in the market, this is absolutely the best thing that Xbox can do. I mean, they're no longer relying on exclusives, and even Game Pass is less attractive than what it used to be. So if they came out with a traditional console that's basically on the same power level as the PlayStation 6 and priced similar to the PlayStation 6, well, that to me would put Xbox in a bad position. I mean, Xbox gamers could potentially jump over to the PlayStation 6 in that case because it has all the same games plus more. But if the next Xbox is significantly more powerful than the PlayStation 6, and really also the Steam machine in this case, well, then that kind of changes things because it would attract the demographic that wants their games to perform and to look their absolute best in a console environment. I mean, basically, on paper, every single game would theoretically look and perform better on the next Xbox if it truly is that much more powerful than the other options on the market. So I don't necessarily hate this plan for Xbox, again, given their position. Now, at the same time, we've seen time and time again that premium devices do tend to be more on the niche side of things. But I don't really think that Xbox cares about that as much. I don't think that they're necessarily going to have the best-selling console in the market. I think that this is really being built for Xbox fans specifically to give them something to transition into next generation if they want to stay within their ecosystem. But I think their ultimate goal to achieve that is to differentiate the next Xbox from the competition by making it by far the most powerful console on the market. And I think that's ultimately why they're highlighting that once again. I think they want to remind everybody that even though Valve beat them to the punch for a console PC hybrid, they still want to offer a far more powerful experience than what they're offering. Now, which option you prefer is completely up to you, but hey, that's the beauty of competition. We as consumers will get to choose which option we prefer. Now, one last thing before we go, though, because Jeff Keighley just revealed this year's Game of the Year nominees for the Game Awards Showcase. You can see here the list includes Expedition 33, Death Stranding 2, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Hades 2, Hollow Knight Silksong, and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, which I think is actually a pretty solid selection of games. I mean, maybe you could argue that The Blueprints, Silent Hill F, or Split Fiction deserves a nomination, but I think that this is a pretty fair list of games, all things considered, and ultimately, that's the thing, because this is all subjective. I think people take these awards far too serious for what they are. The Game Awards might be a big showcase and all, I get it, but at the end of the day, it's a bunch of outlets that chooses what they like, and that doesn't always necessarily represent how gamers feel. I mean, if that was the case, then games like The Last of Us Part 2 wouldn't be so hated, because, critics love that game, but, here we are. So, from my perspective, I'd say just go in and have some fun with this showcase and have fun with the voting regardless of who wins. Now, personally, my bet is that Expedition 33 will win. That's my prediction, but let me hear from you in the comments below. I would like to hear your nominees and your Game of the Year, regardless if they are on this list or not. Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode, but until next time, make sure to subscribe, ring that bell, and peace out.